Thank you, firstly, Avanti, for letting us use your studio. Lovely
course.
place.
Thank you.
I want to start off by saying camera does add the 10 pounds, so excuse me.
It's fine. We're all, you have to embrace that it's a new experience, and I'm very proud of you for doing this podcast.
Thank you so much.
You've been talking about this for how long have I known you? I've known you for 3 saal to ho gaye. It's been 3 years,
Yeah,
4 years.
easy.
You've been talking about it pretty much since the time I knew you. So now
Don't
the
say
fact
that.
you're
I've been telling people it's only been a year since I've been talking about it, but now that you mention it, that's actually quite. It's been quite a while. I guess we met not even three. We met like 4 years before.
4 years.
It's
yeah.
surprising how everyone just skips the last 2 years of the pandemic.
I know, right? I feel like when I say last year, I'm trying to refer to 2020, but that's incorrect.
Talking about that, today's conversation is actually supposed to be all about understanding and breaking down what you are, who you are, and who Avanti Nagral perceives Avanti Nagral to be. You're like
So we're
shooting
doing
YouTube.
Avantiception today?
Yeah, Avantiception. That's the right word. You're doing YouTube all the time, good videos, partnerships across. You're doing a Discord server, you're shooting Instagram reels, you're doing Instagram general posts, you're singing, you're producing music, you're doing music videos. God damn, is it not like exhausting to be you?
Oh, you're very kind. My philosophy has always been like, if Beyonce and Obama have 24 hours in a day, then we all have 24 hours in a day. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's not one of the productivity that people see or the level of output has taken years to build. When we first met, we actually worked together on a project, right? That's how we met. And actually, I'm curious. Do you think I've changed since then? What is at least like my ethic?
We'll get to that.
Okay,
I want to know what you feel though.
Well, I guess what I feel is this is, it may seem a certain way now, but it's many years in the making. It's many years of building connections, building infrastructure, building out teams, which is a really difficult battle, to find the people who share a vision with you and you really trust, and also just like your own physical and mental health, right? Because if you're not, all of the things that one does, one might think, oh, sitting in front of the camera is easy, but I'm curious, do you think it's an easy task?
Not so easy.
Abhishek called me after one of these episodes. I won't name which one.
Story.
Yeah, true story. I won't name which one. And he was like, oh my god, it's so much harder than I thought it was. Because logo ko lagta hai, there's just like, it's fancy. Aspects of it are fancy. I'm breaking the fourth wall a little bit here, but like there's 5 people in the room next to us.
The fourth wall is a new concept I learned, by the way.
Oh, really? We're learning things. It's educational. Yeah. But there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, but just the emotions that it takes to be on camera, the emotions that it takes to build a brand that's based off of who you are, and an extension of that is a lot, right? It's, for example, you've probably gone for like a college show or a festival or something. You know how it is. They treat you there like you are God's next best thing, and all of the situations. And it just, especially the more known you get, the more you have to realize that what they want is your time, they want your attention, and they want your emotions, right? You can't just respond to a DM with an emoji. No, because they like build, they buy into who you are. So you have to be that consistently. Today, now I walk down the road, people stop you and they say hi, right? And imagine if that moment they meet me when I'm in an off day, then that will be their impression of me. So I think the exhausting part is not all of this. Every job, every industry requires hard work. In all aspects, right? And this is all like the front facing. There's the business side of it, which is a whole other beast, as you know. But I think the hardest part, about being an artist or being a creative person who's frontward facing is the emotional exhaustion, or the potential emotional exhaustion, because you'd be on all the time.
Absolutely. Funny that you mentioned it. This is exactly what I was thinking to myself, right? So we were talking about it just the other day, where Shah Rukh Khan mentioned in his interview with David Letterman how he perceives his life to be as him, an individual working for the brand of what Shah Rukh Khan is.
Totally.
Right? So how does one actually cope with that? The fact that, let's say, you had like such an off day since the morning, you're not feeling good, or you've had sort of an emotional backlog to carry, and then suddenly you end up meeting someone who seen the perception, like who has the perception of you that's been created by you, or like that who you are
Of
online
course.
in your best state of mind.
Yeah.
How do you carry that and like make sure the that specific identity of you is not beaten?
I have a question. When you say have a shitty day and you have to get onto a client meeting, do you let that affect it?
uh, Honestly, like until the minute the call begins, I am like literally the worst person to be around, and so I'm like, why is this happening today? Should I just push it back? But no, sometimes you just can't, right?
You can't.
The minute the call begins, it's like my mindset just entirely changes. Now that you mentioned it, I can imagine what I'd like. It's difficult, right? Like throughout that hour of, let's say, a conversation you have, or 30 minutes of a client meeting that you have, you're constantly, your mind is generating ideas and
Totally.
been wanting to make you speak about something. Suddenly your physiology is entirely changing. You're
Of course.
in that state of mind where excited, and even after the meeting I've noticed like my mood's different, right? So in fact, I would want to set up more meetings on my days off.
Yeah.
But still, I feel like what really matters is the productivity that you could probably participate in that conversation with, right? I'm sure even though the minute the conversation starts, I am not as productive or as participative, or
You're
if
just
that's
not
a
as
word.
present, you know? Yeah.
So I mean, that's the only thing that lacks. But again, that's again a one-on-one conversation that can probably be repeated, right? This is, let's say you're doing a live conversation, or you're doing like a college festival where you're being interviewed by someone. How do you have those conversations?
I mean, again, you have to know it's the same thing, right? What Shah Rukh Khan mentioned in the show, as you mentioned, is very true. And I think so. You'll see there's a lot of artists who have stage names, right? You'll have Divine, Raja Kumari, Lady Gaga, you name it. And so for a lot of people, then that's a very clear separation. When it is an extension of who you are, and also depends on what you share, right? I share a lot of personal details on the internet because I realize that, you know, for us, a lot of our audience is very young, and a lot of them kind of, in some sense, perceive me to be like their older sister, right? And your older sister's not putting on a show; she's like being real about what life is.
That's how you
know?
see your brand.
I don't know if that's the only way in which I see my brand, but you need to have something that's a quick way, right? Especially when you're someone like me who does music and education and talks about mental health and sexual health on the internet and does business stuff and like all of these things. People like to put you in a box, right? And I don't want to be defined by the category of what I do, because it's more than just music, or it's more than just a video, or it's more than just whatever. So if this is the thing, and beyond that, if 75% of your audience calls you Didi or Di, then you know that like that's a, you know, perception. And I mean, I am an older sister. I don't think you've met my brother yet. Have you met him?
No, not in a social setting.
Not in a
as
social
such.
setting. He's very cool. But I think that's a part of my identity that I love, if that makes sense. So that being an extension of it on the internet is just like, it makes me the happiest. So that's an identity that I embrace, if that makes sense. And I think it also allows things to fit together, because I don't know if you remember when we started, when we first met and we worked together for a bit. I would probably mention to y'all about aspects of myself that people didn't understand, right? So for example, I'd been performing for a while, but people are like, oh, so you're a singer, but you went to Harvard. And that never made sense to them. They're like, but yeah, alag cheez hai, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you talk about global health, but like you also, release a song that is like a sneaking around. That's something that's a little bit, so it's I think it was always dissonant for people. And I always used to have, when I started out, I used to be this whole like duality, two things, you might remember. And now I'm just like, you make of it what you will. That's okay. It's just more, how do you interact? And you know what I've realized, especially over the pandemic, and younger consumers, they are no longer stream-based consumers. What I mean by that is they won't follow someone because they're a singer, because they're a dancer. They'll follow the personality. They're personality-based consumers. So
I think that works for everything. I've seen a lot of
Exactly.
fashion brands. I've seen a bunch of companies thrive because of like the founder, the lead figure, like whoever's positioned online, being very entertaining and
Totally.
engaging.
And it's not even, it's just like, do they buy into the story? Some brands, you may not even know who the face of it is, but if you buy into the story of what it is, then you'll stay,
Agreed.
So similarly, personalities, you have to buy into something. Are you buying into someone's lifestyle being unattainable and they're really cool? Are you buying into somebody being relatable? Are you buying into somebody being inspirational? What are you buying into, right? And so realizing what that is for you helps in understanding how people perceive you. It's so weird because I always have to realize how people are looking at me. Like, I don't. How many times do you Google yourself?
More often than you'd think.
Okay.
But yeah, not as many. Like,
I mean, so I have Google alerts set to my name, right? So I get
okay.
notifications at least every time there's a news article because, you have to add it to your press kit and blah, blah, blah. But beyond the business side of it, it's just you want to understand how people are perceiving you. So some people say once you reach a certain stage, right? The numbers we're at, there's thousands of DMs and comments and stuff every day. And so if I go on to read everything, then sometimes it can take a toll on your mental health. But I try my best. You saw the other day, he's like, show me how many you have unread. And very few of them are actually unread, at least like that I've accepted, right? Because again, I realized that there's still a human at the other end who wants to interact with another human. And that's what they're buying into. And especially because I talk about sensitive things, people pour out their heart story to me, Abhishek, in the DMs. It's kind of,
Beyond your DMs, I've also noticed that on a lot of your comments, right? I was browsing through some of the content you put out, even like saying your catchphrase in different languages.
Yeah.
I went on the comments and checked actually how people are very, I would say, sensitive towards everything that happens out there, and they really want to be a part of that conversation.
Totally.
And let others know, okay, this language or this way of communication really means a lot to me, so better not mess with it.
No, exactly, right? And I appreciate that. To me, I realized that, look, you can build numbers, but building community is going to be a long-term game. And not just from a strategy point of view, just also from like a human point of view, right? I want to connect with humans, not just with bots or not just with people who see you in passing, but rather people who are invested, right? Because then you can provide opportunities for them and vice versa.
Of course. And I mean, since you mentioned earlier, right, like talking about how I probably have seen a change in you, I sort of knew that you were full of things. You were always wanted to do everything that you're doing right now. No, seriously, like I remember when I guess when we had a very brief stint of working together,
Totally.
And that time I was always out of the company where I worked, and you were just starting off in India in terms of like anything, music, content, and sort. You're talking about so much at that point did not seem possible.
Yeah.
So it's really like surprising and motivating to sort of see you do everything, man. Like coming out of Harvard and Berkeley, like already the expectations were like so high. Doing a dual degree with like at some of the biggest institutes in the world, and beyond high expectations, you were just like literally talking. You had a roadmap in place, right? I mean, I do the same thing. Like everything's being planned, but at some point you reach a level of exhaustion and you're like,
Totally.
how is it humanly possible? This happens with me almost every Monday where I have a task list, and by end of Monday I'm like, I haven't gotten shit done. So this is not a day task list, this is like a week task list. So it's very, very important for anyone who's doing something to understand like the amount of patience you need, plus probably how to plan something out. In your case,
100%.
like considering the stuff you're already doing, plus I'm sure there's a lot more you want to do.
Yeah.
How are you making these and setting these timelines? Like everyone's watched the compartmentalization video of you. I have, it helped me a lot.
Time management, yes.
Time management. Check it out. Breaking the fourth wall again. But how do you actually set realistic timelines? Like how do you know I have these 5 things to do and I need to get it done either in a week, a month, or a year? Because something actually like 5 things can take you a year.
Of course they can. I think it's just you have to prioritize. I think I found in the last couple years especially, just the time is out of your control. Some things that I thought would take 2 years to happen have happened much faster, and some things that I've wanted to happen for years still haven't happened, right? And a lot of that's not in your control, but what is kind of the work you put into building around it. I'm a firm believer in, there are some things that you can control and some things that you can't. And if you waste your time thinking about the things you can't control, then you're just wasting your time, So what can you control? You can control your emotional reactions to things to a certain degree, right? If you feel like your emotional reactions, your resilience is not in your control, then please seek out counseling, therapy, help, find a catharsis, right? People they throw around the word mental health as like a buzzword today because it's cool to talk about it. But if you're somebody who truly wants to invest in your own mental health, all of these are parts of it. And it's not just when things get bad. It's on the daily. Like, for example, with our physical health, you try to eat right, you try to exercise. Similarly, with your mental health, you have to find practices in your daily life that build that resilience over time, right?
What keeps you going on?
I think so music actually has been very cathartic for me for many, many years. It did get a little weird in between when it became my profession. And then I was like, oh, but I'm making money from the thing that has given me the escape. And, so just like a lot of... So I think I've had to find aspects of creativity that are just for me, Because the weird thing is today, like the kind of job that I do, everything I do is a part of my job, right? Because I decided a couple years ago that I'm not just going to be a musician. And it's not like, oh, there's not anything wrong with being just an XYZ. It's just for my personality, I felt better suited to try kind of expanding the personal brand, right? And being a YouTuber and all of that as well. And so
don't point at me like that.
Someone's going to be a YouTuber very soon. No, but so as a result, anything that whatever I cook with my mom, it can be content. You know what I mean? So now my brain is wired to think of everything as content. So I need to have moments where I'm just like, no, this is not, for other people's consumption. It's just for yourself. And I think it's finding those moments. I think it's really just having people around you that you can rely on and building that support system. And it takes time.
It's funny. So this exact moment that you mentioned, that like you have to find that time off away from just shooting or like doing stuff. Firstly, it's very, very hard to believe that you actually find that time, like considering the amount of stuff you're doing. Like I said, right, Instagram, YouTube, like I work with a lot of artists. I work with creators in the past. I know how difficult it gets and
Totally.
how adamant you have to be to wanting to shoot content if you really want to. And if you have like a loose attitude, you cannot, right? How is it possible for anyone to separate their life from what it is supposed to be online or what it is online versus in reality? Like one of the biggest things, like we were just talking about how I'm into so many things. I'm into music. I love sports. I am running my own business. I want to do a lot more. I love watching videos of like chefs. Like I love watching shows on Netflix about anything to do with Gordon Ramsay or like how food is made, how local ingredients are sourced. Like there's so much more I would want to consume.
Yeah.
But because of the business we are in, I've sort of also had that lens put up where everything I see is from a perspective where, oh my God, this is something I should start doing and get some of the creators probably I'm working with to shoot, right? But at the same time, now it's more like, okay, this is something I could be doing.
Totally.
At what point do you decide like what's for you, what's for, because obviously everyone speaks about how your real true self should be online. But what makes you make that decision? Okay, this part of me cannot be seen online, or this part of me is too good to be, or too close, or I would say important to me to sort of being monetized. How do you make that decision? Like, because something that you're very good at, it is hard not to put it out there, right?
No,
because it's all about you and your personal brand. So what makes you make that decision? Like if you're, let's say if you're a very good chef, like, how do you decide, okay, I am not going to monetize this?
You have to decide what are you doing the thing for, right? So for example, for me, my fitness and cooking, for example, are two things I actually enjoy, but I don't really monetize them in the same way.
Yeah, fitness is something I've never seen you talk about, but you're quite healthy.
Because it's something I do to keep myself alive, quite literally, right? I feel like cooking is a life skill. Like all of this is a life skill, and maybe I'll get to a stage I don't feel confident. Honestly, I don't feel confident in my abilities in either realm to feel like I can put it out there as a subject matter expert by any means. Maybe for fun, I will show it at some point, but I don't think it even has to be thought of in that way, that you have to have some parts that are intensely private or some parts that are intensely public. It's just in that moment what feels right to you. And also that not every idea is a good idea, right? Similar to you, so this studio, which y'all will find out, it's called a DreamSpace. You'll find out about it soon. But the idea behind it, the mission behind it, it's taken something that's taken a couple of years to bring into fruition, right? And also with that, I have to recognize that right now my focus has to be the personal brand. The more I scale that up, the more this will grow. So that's why you have to put the brakes, like pauses on certain things to have other things grow. Because if you're going like 100 kilometers per hour for everything, you're going to burn out. And you're not going to get anything done. So you have to kind of think of it in waves. And, you were talking about prioritization, like the 5 things in the year. like maybe this is important for this part of this year. Like for example, songs wise, there's some songs that I'm putting out this year that I've had written or even produced for like 3 years. It's just the time wasn't right, you know?
Got it. Of course, I mean, personal brand is, I think, something everyone is just basing something on, but it just like feels exhausting for other people. Like it's not even like I'm doing so much. It's I just feel I have to empathize with like literally every creator, how they're like open to putting their entire lives out there. I have some friends who are like very funny, very entertaining, and for years we've had this back and forth conversation about how they should be probably open to putting some content out just because they're funny, they're entertaining in a group, and everyone just loves them. You know those lovable personalities that you have. But at what cost, right? The minute you're, especially as a girl, the minute your profile on Instagram is open, it has no going back. It's scary.
It is scary,
right? And if you're out there on the internet with an open profile, you cannot expect to have a lot of privacy.
Even then, even if you have security and whatever, right?
People always know what's going on in your life. So I mean, it's very obviously commendable that you guys are willing to put your stuff out there and have your life out in the open. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's just like very difficult to sort of separate that from what your personal brand is versus what your life's supposed to have. And
I think you just need to find the fine line between the person you are and the persona you're building.
like even if you're the most loved creator, no one takes a second to think before hating, right?
Of
So if you do
course.
anything that's against who you're supposed to be or what they prefer in you, there's like ton of hate out there. How do you guys cope with it? And like I like just let's talk about and sort of understand or give out the information to younger people or even people like me who want to now create their own content on how do you actually deal with it and just like navigate through it, thrive, and still like let yourself not be burdened by it.
You can't let it get to you. I know it's easier said than done, but I guess I have 3 ways of looking at hate. One, it's often an insecurity on their part. And so because it's their insecurities coming out, you kind of have to be like, it's their problem, not mine, right? And you just really have to let it go that way, because most often it is them coming from a jealous place, an insecure place, or whatever, right? The second is trolls. There are trolls everywhere, and they're armed with the weaponization of being anonymous on a platform. They would never say it to you on your face, but what they cannot say to you on your face, they can be like, XYZ boobs and 69 and then like type in some random, comment and say whatever, right? Many of them often want attention. So the more you ignore, the better it is. You can delete, but think about it, once you get to a certain scale, you can't delete, right? So you just have to leave it. And you'll find that if you're building a community and you're not just thinking about fans or followers, but you're like humans in a community, they will stick up for you. You don't even have to do it, right? And then the third thing for me, it's very important for myself, my own personal safety. And again, because our community is full of a lot of people who are at varying stages of life, I need people to feel safe. So if I feel like there is something that might make somebody else feel unsafe, you can block, you can report,
that is obviously required, I guess. I mean, yeah, that's something I can relate to.
It's important, but it's also one of those, psychologically, let's say 90% of it is good and 10% of it is hate. Your mind will always focus on the hate, right? And you have to remember there's the good. You have to remember, like, for every bad comment, just look at a good comment. Or whatever it is, whatever you need, right? And the danger with the good comments also is sometimes it can get to your head, right? Yeah. And because you have so many people hyping you up and doing whatever, it's very amazing, but you have to keep yourself grounded, which is why I was saying the persona. I think you have to remember that, like, okay, people might love Avanti.
So let me cut you off here. No, Two things I really want to talk about. One is has anything ever, have you had a meltdown because of a negative comment you read? And second, since you mentioned the good thing getting to your head, there's a live example I have seen, and I'll talk more about that. But let's first address, like, has a negative comment ever let you have a meltdown?
For sure. And it's not even that the comment was necessarily like crazy. It's just I had a shitty day and that was fuel to fire, and that happens sometimes. And then you feel like, oh my God, am I worthless? And then all the negative thoughts start coming into your head, right? But then again, that's when you have to be like,
how do you get out of it?
So one, look at the love, right? Because it'll remind you that there's two sides to every coin. Second, take a break. Like, get away from your device as much as you can. Like, I sometimes feel like throwing my phone, but then I'm like, no, I'll have to spend so much money to repair it. So, no, you know. But whatever it is, and for some people that's, I don't know, going on a run, doing something, but just getting your mind off of that really helps. Because otherwise, you feel like that's the only world you live in, right? And I think it's so important also to have friends who are outside of the space you're in. If all of my friends were just creators or singers or artists or people in media, then I would just feel like that's the only world that exists in life. But it's not. I have friends who are doing such different things. Like my friends, for example, who are doing a PhD in physics, don't even know what the heck social media is. Like, they're not even on it, some of them. I mean, it's not
There's surprisingly a very high number of those people that even I come across.
Exactly, right? And so it's so cool to sometimes be like, okay, this might feel like it's the end of the world, but it's the end of what I perceive as my world. The world is a world, you know, and everyone has their own space within that.
Especially even the demographic. Like the other day, I learned about how in the US, there's people don't use WhatsApp as much.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah,
that crazy.
That was actually crazy surprising. But talking about the other aspect, like you mentioned, right, a lot of the times the good things also get to someone's head. I don't know about in a very like, I don't know if they become arrogant, if they start sounding like they know it all, but in terms of a very third party perspective, I've seen people being appreciated by fans for something they've put out, and it's not up to the quality or up to the mark of what they have the potential of doing, and them settling for what they've done going forward. Like, I understand content. I work with artists. I have a business that like literally survives on like giving consulting people on content, right?
Totally.
So a lot of the times when I'm being told by my clients where, okay, the audience loves it, but they don't realize that you have to break down the audience. Firstly, unfortunately, there's like a huge difference in who you're making a certain type of content for. Like, the mass would want something else versus the niche that you are catering to would want something else. Just because 10 of the people from the audience you don't want to cater to are appreciating you doesn't mean it's right.
Sure.
So you have to really put your efforts into identifying what other people are doing, what has had like the most, I would say, even like getting into more of insights, right? Understanding what actually has a higher number and understanding what sort of content is actually good, rather than just because I have 10 good comments, I'm going to keep on doing this. I have no idea like how do I literally push people to understand, because obviously it's a mental block that's formed, right?
Totally.
Okay, like even today if 10 people told me that what I'm doing is great, I would also want to set it as a benchmark of what I want to do ahead. But I feel it's very important for people to keep consuming more, for people to keep pushing and have that taste develop over time and keep like
and
experimenting, right?
Exactly, don't become stagnant.
Yeah, so I mean, in your case, I've seen like physically it get better, but at what, like right now, I don't think you've had more than like the amount of comments you get now that are positive are way more than ever in the past, right? So now obviously you reached a point where you can have a benchmark for this is what my content quality should be. So if you have to get better, like how are you going to probably go ahead with it?
So basically we're saying, you're talking about what it's like to get a lot of positive comments and everything.
Specific part was how, like, after getting the positive comments, how do you still keep on developing your taste and the substance of your content? I'm not talking about everything that you want to do, or how do you keep your
pushing the boundaries and everything. I mean, okay, so there's two parts to it. One, you really have to remember that the positive comments are amazing and it's humans appreciating you, but like you, the human, are different slightly. So you have to remember that you suck. I don't mean in like put in a self-deprecating way, no, but genuinely, you have to remember that, okay, like I have flaws, I have this, I have that, because it can feel very disconcerting. I'll tell you one moment where I felt it most. I was putting out a video with Steven, and it was a branded video, so I couldn't push it. Like if it was just content, I could have done something else. And we were having a massive fight that day, right? And I put the video out and everything's like, couple goals, most perfect couple, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I right now don't really like this person, and it was so funny because then I'm like, whoa, this really feels like the Avanti person versus the Avanti brand kind of situation. I think when it comes to your specific question about how do you keep kind of learning, it's about how do you keep learning, right?
For a lack of a better word, yes.
Yeah, so you have to consume stuff that inspires you. There's so in fact I have different YouTube. So my main, like my actual YouTube channel is set to kind of similar things, and it gives me recommendations of stuff that
the
is
channel
more
you
like
use to consume stuff.
Yeah, so I mean that's my main
Okay.
channel. All the recommendations I get are like a lot of people similar to me or in similar categories. So I kind of see what the rest of my peers are doing. I get recommendations based on kind of what is my research, if that makes sense. Then I have one channel that's literally just for like exercise videos and like random cooking videos or whatever, right? And you have to kind of fine tune it based on whatever, because you have to understand what inspires you and why. Because I truly believe that we are what we eat and we are what we consume. The same way in which 90% of fitness is what you put into your body, not how you work out your body. Similarly, 90% of your mental fitness and your mental health, and also just like who you are, especially if this is your job, is what you're consuming, right? So you have to be both, understand what people want, whatever the masses want, etc. So do your own research, but also consume stuff that challenges you intellectually, because then you'll start to come up with other ideas and be inspired. And I write everything down. I'm very old school in the way I document things. So I have this notebook, like a 5-subject notebook, where I note down, like, depends on the category. And for me, it's always been if I write something down physically, then I can take it out of my brain. In the sense, in that moment.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's always on my mind and I'm always thinking about it.
Yeah,
So
I read about this thing called brain dumping recently.
yes.
Did you put a story about it? Someone, I think I saw someone's story, and they were talking about brain dumping, where literally map out what's inside and putting
just,
out
yes,
on a paper.
I do that all the
I'm
time.
going to start doing that before going to sleep every night.
Yes. Otherwise I dream about weird things when it comes to work, and then like I'm in, it's not fun.
And funnily, one thing like sort of accepted more than learned lately is there's never a right or wrong in content.
Yeah.
Like there's if you're doing something, it might work for you, but it might not be the right thing according to me, because there's just so many variants in terms of audience, like what you're using, the level of production, and the platform you're putting it out on, right? So it's more, I guess, on acceptance that what you're doing is just like a fragment of the amount of work you've put into it.
100%. And it's always like, so my, I guess, advice, if anybody wants to kind of what you were saying about people who feel stagnant for you, is will future you be proud of what you're putting out today? No matter what it is, it can be something that, if not, then why are you doing it? And so long as you know why you're doing it, then you can make peace with yourself, because the thing about these trends that are happening today, so I believe that your content should be a few different things, right? If I had to divide it percentage-wise.
Like me personally, or in general?
In general, not this is not like what Abhishek should do. Okay. I'm saying in general, and then I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I believe 20% should be seeing what the trends are, because it's important to understand what's working today and what's not, and putting your own spin to it. Another, 30% should be you creating trends. And I don't necessarily mean you specifically creating a dance challenge, but creating something unique, creating something that's, whether it's intellectual property, right, in the form of a song, or you creating something that you feel like, you would want to have that same effect. And the rest of it is just experimentation. Because you never know what works. And if you don't experiment, if you don't open yourself up, if you're in this rigid bubble, then you're never going to see, what opportunities exist and what kind of lies out there. I see so many creators who have issues with brand deals, for example, in the sense, of course, you get money and you're really grateful about the partnership, but some people
the execution part.
Yeah, I love all of the brands I work with. Like, I'm so excited because so many of them are in fields like education or healthcare, or, even if it's lifestyle, it's something I'm passionate about, and it feels like a true partnership because it doesn't feel like majboori. Because it's coming from a place where they know that will make a difference, and vice versa. Does that make sense?
Of course, it totally makes sense.
Yeah. Would you agree with my percentage allocation?
So like I said, there's no right or wrong. You said 90-10, is it? 90-10?
No. I said basically it should be a combination of. I mean, you
Yeah,
can
but
do 30,
10%
30.
trend, 90% of what you really.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
20%.
I think
whatever,
that's a fair sort of differentiation in the kind of content, because yes, I agree that it's important that you keep doing the trend-centric content just to put yourself out there,
Of course.
and then later the audiences that come to you are sort of being introduced to who you really are, what you really want to do.
Exactly.
But I just feel right now it's become everyone has started, like for example, right, like me as a layman, and I know my friends who do that too, who mindlessly scroll through reels. I can't understand what is it that actually gets me to engage with it.
Yeah.
Like I have zero idea. So to say that 10% is actually trends, I don't know if trend is the right word to use for it, or it's just some sort of, is it a placebo? I don't know what it's supposed to be. It's
Yeah.
like people are drilled. Like why are you mind? I don't know if you do it, but I do it quite often. I know a lot of people who do it quite often. You're just mindlessly scrolling,
Of
and
course.
obviously the kind of reels you actually like or tap on or interact the most with, those are the types you are more exposed to, right?
Yes, of course.
Uh,
I mean, it's
so-
AI at the end of the day, yeah.
So I
Machine
think in
learning.
fact, like instead of a 90-10, you have to sort of do an 70-20 and 10. 70 being obviously what you really want to do, what you really are made of, what your personal plan's about. 20 is more on the lines of a intersection between what people are doing out there and what your fans are demanding, versus what is the highest value you can add.
Of course.
And the last being just this like trend, if you may call it, mindlessly scrolling
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. No, that's what I meant. I meant like you have to put your own spin on it, regardless of what it is,
Yeah.
and you create trends, right? You can look at a. Nothing is ever original in this world. No art is original. Everything is always a combination, right? So let's say, for example, I'll come across someone who's done, say, a trend on some song, and I'll be like, the way in which people are interacting with this is fascinating. What have they used? Are they using like a CTA, a call to action, right in the beginning, or are they, like using a lot of transitions? Maybe transitions aren't necessarily my thing, but can I make my next thing fast paced because I know that's going to grab attention? So it's like you have to extrapolate the learnings and kind of how you can do that, if that makes sense.
Of course, totally makes sense. There's and just talking about again like the fact that people don't know why they're actually engaging with some of the content that's out there.
Totally.
Even now YouTube doing shorts, there's just like, I would say, an ocean of content
Yeah.
for you to like. And I was someone who was never doing it. It just started like a few months ago. I'm laying on my bed, lying down on my bed, and sort of just scrolling through, and I cannot stop.
It's designed. It's an infinity scroll. It's machine learning. It's artificial intelligence. It's designed for that. You have to know where to put your own breaks if you need to, but it just depends on kind of like okay. Think about music, right? There's some songs we hear that we don't necessarily actually like, but they're just pushed to us so much because of the marketing budgets, or they're like major labels, they're on the radio everywhere,
Of course.
whatever, or now they're on reels. Some people don't even go listen to those songs. They'll be like, hey, wo audio, So either you're one person who's like, okay, I want to understand what's going on and kind of be in that zone, or you also kind of declutter through the noise. Right? How do you actually discover what you enjoy?
Dude, since you mentioned this, what's really mind blowing, that the fact that earlier everything that's out there, cinema, music, theater, whatever, YouTube,
Art
whatever,
forms,
whatever
yeah,
there
yeah.
is, everything has its own point of entry for consumption.
Yeah.
But if you look at it from a bigger picture, be it reels or shorts, that short video content format has become little point of entry into a sub content, or like the main
Yeah.
master content out there. This is the sub content that really drives. Like imagine no one's going to decide on the movie they want to watch by browsing through a catalog. They are going to save the movies that they see the best scenes out of on reels or on
or they see the
TikTok
trailer,
or so it's like literally mind blowing how everything just come to the point where it's based on that short video streaming format, and like it just hit me. And
Yeah. Well, it's based on the attention economy, right? And
yeah,
because today's consumers have so much optionality. 50 years ago, you didn't have that optionality, right? You had to watch all the ads to get through your favorite TV show. Today, I can buy a
Skip.
premium service, I can skip. I don't like this, I flip the channel. I don't like this thing, I just go and scroll through, right? And so
And that has led to sort of attention span being lesser
Exactly.
and micro content like go up, right?
Exactly.
Earlier, I was just talking to someone about it like that. Okay, I'm starting my own podcast. I'm going to have conversations. Initial plan was just to have like a 2 to 3 hours, a long conversation with the flow. And the person who was like advising me on what it should be was like, nobody watches that much anymore.
Of
Like
course.
obviously there's like a super niche category that are still doing it,
Totally.
but I may not be there yet. Like because when you start off, right, it's micro what people want to consume. Like we probably have to cut this down into a few seconds, put it out on other platforms for people to actually come and watch it.
Of course, many of the podcasts that people enjoy today are because you saw the reel or the short or the TikTok that was that part of the conversation. Like, oh, I want to hear more. You know, it's just so the way I look at audience, right? I believe that the audience is in concentric circles to you if you are the brand, let's say. And all of those circles, people are constantly flitting in and out. The most concentric, the core, is your super fans. And they are people who like everything, comment on everything, buy everything, come to your shows, buy your merch, everything. And you have to give them attention because think about how much time they're putting into you. People make fan pages. Can you imagine? Like people literally make it just blows my mind.
Till date, I cannot believe that there are people who would make fan pages of creators or artists or like actors. I mean, I know the purpose they're trying to serve with it, but I just don't believe it.
It's crazy and it's
very
amazing.
Sweet.
It's very sweet. So I would say my like top at least 100 super fans, maybe 500. I know all of their names. I know their ages. I know the cities
I've been a part of our Discord server, so I know what you're talking about.
Because it's just you have to give them the time and the nurture. So the two groups that I focus on, I don't focus on everyone else in between. I focus on them, and then I focus on the discoverable audience, right? And that's what you're saying. If I want someone to find my music, sure, maybe they'll find it on Spotify or wherever.
Your Discord is lit, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I had to go on and off just because, like earlier, you couldn't mute some sections of it. I wanted to be a part of the the channel of the server where I would probably be involved in what you're doing, etc. But the conversation, like they have made friends, they have made their own sub communities in the whole server,
It's amazing.
and they're having general day-to-day conversations. I love the fact that it's actually giving access to other people, for a lot of people living in tier 2, tier 3 towns who
100%.
probably want to share or have conversations with people with similar mindsets. That's something very commendable, and kudos to you for doing it.
Thank you. I think what we realized is it's not just, I love the fact that they may have come together because they like my brand, but they all come together because, like you said, they have similar mindsets, all of that. And then we do talent shows, we do career chats, we do mental health sessions with professionals, because it's all about opportunity and resource, right? And kind of what you were saying about short form, whether it's just whatever it is, you have to be discoverable. You've been in the music world, you've been in the media world for so long. How is a song discovered? Maybe it gets playlisted, or you have tons of money you throw at ads.
Yeah.
But beyond that, you have to do something on Reels for people to listen to your song.
Of course.
If you're an artist today and you're not leveraging that platform, you're not leveraging all your tools of discovery. You know, you have to understand that maybe you don't want to make Reels for the rest of your life or whatever it is. But like you said, it's an entry point. And whatever the entry points are that you are comfortable with as a creator, it's really important to explore those, because you never know who comes from where.
Agreed.
You know?
Agreed. I mean, judging by all of this that's happening, it's very I cannot ever reach a conclusion where how did people back in 90s or even the 2000s push music out, push movies. Like movies, okay, there's still like a lot of the old media that serve the purpose of pushing movies out. But music especially, and let's say YouTube videos, when there was no ad mechanism, how did people make it reach the right people?
Yeah.
Like Shawn Mendes, I remember in the early 2000s putting covers out. It went viral and suddenly he's like a big star. Same thing with Justin Bieber.
But you're giving great examples. Sean and Justin are not one-hit wonders. Yeah. They're people who've made long-standing careers out of what they've done, because again, they were not just they probably saw the covers as a gateway to their music. I'm just giving the music example, right? So you have to see these things as gateways and know that what you're building has to be long-term. Something may not work right now and that may really frustrate you. Or if you just cater to, like you're saying, anything everybody else is saying, you might get short-term success, but you won't build that long-term. people won't remember you then as an artist or whatever it is you want to be remembered by. Even if you want to be remembered as like a short form creator, you have to have a long-term vision. It can't be just it's hard because this world is a very day-to-day world where like you lose relevance if you don't post every day. It's ridiculous. But in the daily, you have to remember that there is this 5-year, 10-year plan and keep building toward that.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah, that's a lot to process.
Yeah.
Again, talking about how we've sort of known each other for so long, and I've literally seen you manifest all of that. Very, very happy for you to sort of get to it. I know there's a lot more to come.
For sure.
One thing I'm going to start actually doing a lot is I
Yeah.
want you to tell me, because again you're a third party perspective. You've
Totally.
seen me from a different light actually, not probably as closely over the last few years because we
No,
didn't
of
meet as
course,
often,
of
etc., etc.
course.
What would you perceive my brand to be, like my personal brand, if I had to do more YouTube content?
Ooh, that's a very interesting question. First, you're only going to find out the more you do it. I used to think like someone has to help me out with whatever brand. I didn't know what my short form style was. I didn't know until I did it. So first we'll see like what people receive. But I think, I mean, you're somebody who has a lot of like your brain works at 100 miles per hour, right? And so somebody who's constantly learning, seeking out new ideas and having that mindset, it doesn't matter what the emotion palette is, right? You might be worried, oh, am I coming across serious? Am I coming across funny? Am I coming across... You are you. Whether you realize it or not, and whatever you are in that moment of time is what will shine through. You're someone who is a great conversationalist, so I think a podcast is a great medium for you to start with, for sure. And then everything else is kind of like what makes you feel like you are living a life that you will be proud of now and 5 years from now. You know? I know that's like a lot of words I've thrown out there, but genuinely that's what it is.
I get it. Of course I get it. I'm just trying to process all of it, sort of have... I get the part where you mentioned about something that's closest to how you add value, but the second aspect of it, where I would want to look back at this 5 years later and sort of be happy about it.
Totally.
That's something I'm going to really work on. I think that there's just a lot more I want to talk to you, and we are going to be doing this again, I guess, sometimes like maybe in the near future, but today we're out of time. So because you have a very busy schedule, thank you so much for being here. It was lovely talking to you.
Thank you. Likewise.